What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thunder Nation podcast, part of Heartland Sports, heartland-sports.com. We got our Thunder writing crew here, Donnie, Zach, and Craig. Hey, we lots of things happening right now. With Oklahoma City being off Monday and Tuesday, it is a roster shuffle before they take their trip out to the West Coast to take on the Clippers and the Warriors Wednesday, Thursday in their first back-to-back of the season. We got to start with breaking news, and that is, well, it's not really breaking news probably by the time you listen to this podcast, but at the time we're recording it, it's breaking news. Gone from the Oklahoma City is Ersan Ilyasova and a conditional first-round draft pick. And brand new to the Thunder, let's welcome everybody, Jermi Grant, formerly of the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, Donnie, I'm going to start with you. Last week in our podcast, we talked specifically about Ilyasova and his $8.4 million that he was chewing up of the salary cap, and basically agreed, you know, this guy's trade bait. He's not a long-term solution. So I'm gonna start with you. You give up Ilyasova, you give up a conditional pick. What that means is if it's a top 20 pick, then they get to move that back. If it's top 20, they get to move to 10 second-round picks in 2022 and 2023. Otherwise, they're sending a first-round pick in 2020. So, I mean, you give a distant future pick. You get rid of a guy who is eating up salary cap. Donnie, is this a good move or a bad move for the Thunder?
Well, I think it's a good move if it's done in a series of moves. If you just look at it as it stands right now, if the Thunder were to give up the possibility of a first-round pick, although there's very little, if any, chance that will ever come to reality, it's going to probably end up being the second-round picks. But if you give up a guy who can shoot the basketball for a guy who's really athletic but probably couldn't shoot a gun if it was loaded right in front of him and Jermi Grant, it looks pretty bad. But if you view it from the perspective of this is step one out of several steps, and in other words, the roster isn't completely done and finished, I love it. I absolutely love it. Jermi Grant's 22 years old. His deal is not guaranteed for next year. Even if it is, it's like a itty-bitty, it's like $1 million-ish, which is incredible in this new NBA climate with all the crazy salaries and everything. I love it from that perspective.
By the way, Hillary Clinton does not approve of your loaded gun analogy. Zach, is this a good move or a bad move for the Thunder?
I'm kind of undecided at the moment. I feel like this is one of those trade deals where it's going to take us a little while to kind of see how it plays out. I don't know much about Jermi Grant except for he's a kind of role player on the league's worst team over the last couple of years, so that doesn't necessarily bode well for his reputation. But everything that I've seen about him is he's just one of those freakishly athletic guys, which the Thunder loves to go after at sometimes. Kind of an Andre Robertson type guy, which has brought up conversation of, is Dre going to stay in Oklahoma City, or is Jermi Grant part of a bigger trade plan? Who knows? But I don't know much about him, so I'm going to have to see him play, see what he does for us, see how he fits into our rotation, and really what he can offer before I want to really commit to an opinion on the guy. I hate to judge a guy before he gets to try to prove himself, but I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out here in the next few weeks.
10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 turnovers in 22 minutes against the Thunder a week ago in the season opener. You know, I agree kind of with what Donnie's saying. If it's a part of a bigger deal, then I think this is maybe the makings of something pretty spectacular for the franchise. But if this is just a one-off, we're dumping salary cap, I'm having a hard time saying that word, dumping salary cap. Craig, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Are you okay with dumping $8.4 million in Ilyasova and grabbing a guy who basically is a role player right now?
I am, and looking at the trade right off the bat, I like it. I'm looking at his 8 points per game with 3.5 assists, and I'm looking at what Andre Robertson has done offensively this season, and that seems a lot better. But you also got to consider his athleticism. I think adding him with Victor Oladipo and Russell Westbrook, already arguably two of the most athletic guys in the NBA, I think it's going to be a really cool dynamic to have all three of those guys out there, just making plays to get to the rim and getting easy baskets for the big men inside.
Well, Sam Presti definitely making the most of his time off without basketball over the last 2 days. Yesterday, $184 million combined between Victor Oladipo and Steven Adams. Craig, you have long time been a Steven Adams fan. $100 million pretty much secures him long-term here with the Thunder. I look at this as a good move in two ways. The first way, it's stuff that you're taking care of at the very beginning of the season. You don't have anything to worry about moving forward from here. The other way is if these guys become unrestricted free agents, if you don't sign them, and then you get into potentially a bidding war or even a situation like we just went through with Kevin Durant. Thoughts on starting with you, Craig? Thoughts on Steven Adams and Oladipo?
Obviously, I like it. I know there was a lot of questions about the amount of money spent on two guys, but, I think they're more than role players, and that's what I think people from the outside are looking at it as they're just role players and they spend a lot of money. But Adams arguably could have been a max contract guy, and he took less than that. And I believe Zach said earlier this week, yesterday when everything went down, that that seems like unselfish basketball. Guys are taking less money to be able to make a different move, to add one more piece to this team. And so overall, I really like the $184 million spent there.
Okay, Zach, Victor Oladipo has played 3 games with the Thunder. Is he worth $84 million?
I say definitely. If you're going to judge a guy based on 3 games, then that might not be a great price tag for him. But if you look at why we brought him in and what he's doing so far, I'm extremely happy with it. He's the kind of guy that, based on the trends of guys getting contracts, and some of these players in the league are getting paid ridiculous amounts. And it just blows my mind. Guys that are pushing for max contracts. And in my mind, when I hear the word max contract, I'm thinking an all-star, a guy that's he's at the top of his position. And some of these guys in the league are getting contracts that I'm just kind of scratching my head. And it just goes to show that you're really only worth what someone's willing to pay you. And I think getting Oladipo for the price tag that we got him was a steal, because there were talks that whenever he came into Oklahoma City that he might be looking for a max contract, and that kind of made me nervous because I'm thinking, first off, this guy's young. Has he really established himself as a max contract type player? And secondly, are we going to get him for, a year or so and then he's gone? Did we waste our time? I don't know. But nailing it for how much we got him for, I'm very pleased about it. Like I've already said, like Craig mentioned, it's unselfish. I think it's guys want to win, and I think very rarely do you see a guy want to win more than he wants to get paid. And we had a guy leave us over the summer because supposedly he wanted to win, but he took a crazy amount of money as well. We're bringing in guys that are willing to take decent amounts of money, and obviously we're talking about millions of dollars here. Guys are getting paid one way or another. But for Oladipo to settle for, I think the number was $21 million, under what a max contract for him would have been, that says a lot. And he even posted on his Instagram afterwards how excited he is to be here, how much he's looking forward to being with the Thunder. And I think that just goes to show, he's here to play. He wants to stay here. He wants to be here. He loves it here. And as far as I can tell, Thunder fans love having him. I'm a big fan of the guy, and I'm extremely happy with the price tag that we got him for.
All right, Donnie, combined between Oladipo and Adams, you're getting 30 points per game. Now, obviously, there's more than just points. There's defensive statistics, there's rebounding, and so forth. Is this a move, $184 million, is this a move based on potential and future, or is this a move based on what these guys are doing right now for this franchise?
Well, I think it's both. When players come off those rookie scale deals and they're seemingly, if they're getting paid like $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 million, that's incredible for us. But in the NBA, that's very, very little. I think what you are paying for is you're paying for a projection and what they can be in the future. And I think with both players, Oladipo and Adams, if you look at what they can be and you look at the growth they've shown to this point in their career, I think they're great deals. I think the opportunity to secure and lock those guys up and not allow them to enter into restricted free agency is incredible. Restricted free agency is great in the sense that the team can match the deal, but the Enes Kanter contract is not a good deal for the Thunder, and it was structured in a way from Portland where the Thunder had no choice but to match it, but they would never want a deal like that on their books if they would have, engineered it and planned it. And you avoid all that stuff. The ability to, get Olidepo $21 million under, goodness gracious, that's incredible if he becomes half of the player that we think he can be.
Oh, well, you mentioned Enes Kanter. Does he become trade bait in all this now as well?
That one for me?
Yeah.
I think it's a wait-and-see approach. It makes sense. You can just run the numbers really quickly. The Thunder are $7.1 million under the cap. You take $17 million from Enes Kanter. You throw in a Kyle Singler or a Cameron Payne. That puts you right at the $29 million threshold, which that puts you in the conversation next summer potentially for a Blake Griffin, Gordon Hayward, or, hey, you could move Enes Kanter for a good wing player. And I think that's there, but I think it's a wait-and-see approach, but it wouldn't shock me one way or another.
Craig, Enes Kanter has, since coming to Oklahoma City, he has embraced his role on this team. He's embraced the city around him. I know you personally, one of your favorite guys to follow on Twitter. What would that mean to you as a fan, and what would it mean to this franchise to see a guy like that who seems to preach loyalty on everything he does to this team? If he were to get moved, what kind of impact would that have on these guys?
I think it would have a major impact. I think getting rid of Kanter, you're going to kind of take away some team chemistry there with the Stash brothers. I just think, it's a marketing thing as well. Everyone's bought into the whole idea of them being together. He's proven he's loyal. He's defended Oklahoma City. He's defended Russell Westbrook. And I would hate to see it happen, but with the amount that he's making, he's definitely, at this point, the biggest trade bait that we have on the team.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of Kanter, if you haven't seen his jack-o'-lantern he made for Halloween that he tweeted out yesterday, the carved pumpkin tweet, it won Twitter yesterday, did it not, Craig?
Yeah, I loved it. I had a good laugh at that for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys retweeted it from the Thunder Guys account, right?
Maybe. I know I did from my personal account.
Oh, you guys got to get that out there. That needs that deserves to be looked at. Okay, when you look at this team right now, 3-0. We talked last week. Worst case scenario that you lose one or two of these games. Phoenix was the game, the home opener that kind of pushed the Thunder, in my opinion, more than Philly or the Lakers. Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double. Right now, through 3 games, you're looking at the next 2 are the big ones. The Clippers on Wednesday night and then the Warriors on Thursday night. Is the fact that Westbrook is averaging a triple-double, Zach, is that good or bad for this team?
I think it's a little bit of both. As far as it being a good thing, I kind of expected it, honestly, especially through these first 3 games. Before the season started, I actually made a prediction that he'd have his first triple-double in the first 3 games, which I don't think is a bold prediction by any means. So the fact that he's averaging it so far, first player in NBA history to have 100 points, 30 rebounds, and 30 assists in the first 3 games of the season, that says a lot about him as a player, about his willingness to lead this team, his desire to lead this team in the way that he does. And I definitely think it's a good thing. He doesn't quit. And I think that showed especially on Friday where the game was up in the air. It was getting close. Last season we struggled to finish games. This season that does not seem to be the case. And what's different? Who's running the team right now? I think Russell Westbrook is doing his part more than enough. It can be bad if we fall into a pattern like Friday night, where Westbrook was essentially the only reason we won the game. There were some guys that made some key plays down the stretch. Steven Adams came in after having really a pretty awful game, made a couple key plays there in the overtime. Kyle Singler played some solid defense in overtime. Andre Robertson, obviously, with the game-saving block there at the end. Those were big plays. But as a whole, Westbrook was the only guy that was really getting anything done. That cannot be the case. So I was worried about that. But they came in on Sunday, taking on the LA Lakers. Not exactly a high-tier team by any means, but they showed that they can play team ball. I feel like as far as the game goes, that was one of the best team games the Thunder has played in a very long time, not just this season. The ball movement was fantastic. Everybody was getting involved. Team defense really stepped up at times, and it was just a complete game. So if they can play like that more often, I think we'll be sitting pretty for a while.
Craig, the more they rely on Russell Westbrook to provide a triple-double, I'm looking at it, for those of you that are tuning in, I'm the outside guy looking in when it comes to the Thunder, and I'm looking at it from an outsider's perspective, and I'm thinking you need this guy to record a triple-double to beat Philly on the road, to beat Phoenix and the Lakers at home. At what point does this begin to weigh on Westbrook physically? I mean, I know the guy's a specimen. I know he's probably the best all-around athlete in this league. But can he do this night in and night out and lead this Thunder team deep into the playoffs by having this much pressure on him? Or is that the reason why we're seeing some roster moves?
Westbrook doesn't get tired. He actually had a quote after the game the other night where talking about, I don't know how exactly he said it, but when you're trying to win, when you're wanting to win, you don't have time to think about being tired. And I actually do believe that's his mentality. The assists and the rebounds, those are going to come to Russ. So I don't worry about him having to get all of those. It's the points. Like Zach said, when he's having to score 51 points for us to win, that's an issue. But Sunday against the Lakers, he ended up with 33, but he definitely could have, quit scoring when he was still down there at 21, 22 points because, he decided to make those points. Thunder would have been fine without him doing that. And so I just have to agree with what Zach said. Him carrying the team, that's an issue. But when it's him providing shots for other people and him, I saw several times he trusted another player to take the shots. So I don't think it's much to worry about from that standpoint.
38.7 points per game, 12.3 rebounds per game, 11.7 assists per game. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, against the Clippers, going to be probably the most physical game that the Thunder have been involved in through this point of the season, very early on. Donnie, if Russell Westbrook has to play, 48 minutes, if he has to carry this team scoring and everything against the Clippers in L.A., do you think that's going to have an effect the next night against Kevin Durant, or do you agree with Craig? It's part of what he does.
I think it's part of what he does, but also, it's got to. Yes, he's superhuman, but you play that hard, you give that much energy. Mentally, he might be fine, but the body can only take so much. Russell Westbrook has had knee injuries in the past, knee surgeries. I'm not saying he's going to get hurt, but the more wear and tear you make, and I think also, Zach alluded to how they looked really great against the Lakers. Well, part of that is Russell Westbrook was 5 of 6 from 3. That's not Russell Westbrook. Now, granted, if it is this season, hey, let him go crazy. But usually Russell Westbrook's about 30%. I think it is something that has to be looked at, and I think it is something that if it continues, it's fun as a fan. But it would really worry me, after and when you get into the spring and as you get into the playoffs, it's just the body, in my opinion, I know this is hard to say, Russell, but the body can only take so much wear and tear. I think if something starts to go bad against the Clippers tomorrow night, it wouldn't be shocking at all if, Billy Donovan just kind of shut some of his main guys down in the fourth quarter. I'm not necessarily predicting the Clippers to win, but I could see a scenario where you enter the fourth quarter and the Clippers have, 14, 15-point lead and Samaj Christone finishes the game.
All right, well, let's talk about the schedule this week. You've got the Clippers Wednesday night, you got Golden State Thursday night, first back-to-back of the season, and that's kind of where it's at. Let me ask you, same with you, Donnie, is this potentially, well, I know there's weekend games that are coming up, and we'll get into those here in a minute, but when you look at this slate right here, the back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday slate, against two of the top contenders in the West. Is this potentially a defining moment for this basketball team, or is it too early in the season to say that?
Also, I can't wait to watch both games. I say this right now. I actually think the Clippers game is going to be a much more difficult game. The Warriors are obviously more talented, but they're kind of in a flux, mess, crazy. The only thing that scares me about that is that Russell will try to not only win, but also try to kill everyone on the court Thursday night. If you split those games, which I think is doable, and this Thunder team's looking really up. The Thunder up anyways, looking really good. I think that you could make the case that this team might be the third or fourth best team in the West if that happens. 0-2 wouldn't surprise me. If I say it's defining, no, and the reason why is because I think the team you see on the court tomorrow night and the team you see on the court Thursday night is not going to be the same team that you're going to see on the court next March, next April, next May.
Craig, I think you agree with Donnie that the game against the Clippers on Wednesday night is probably going to be a little bit more difficult than the Warriors, just because there's maybe that potential of looking ahead and so forth with the reunion of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Do you also agree that it's too early in the season to say this is a defining moment for this franchise?
Yeah, I think it's a little early. We're already off to a better start than many had predicted. But yeah, I agree with Donnie. Wednesday night's definitely going to be the tougher game in my opinion. I think it's the big men for the Clippers between Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan that will cause problems. Did you see what Blake Griffin said about Russell Westbrook the other day?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, he had this quote. He said, that's just his personality to go out and destroy everything. So that's what reminded me when you said someone mentioned that a little bit earlier. But, yeah, I think Russ is going to go out and he's going to do his thing. Just like I said last week, he's always going to do his part, but it's going to be up to Enes Kanter and Steven Adams to step up and, the role players to get that win on Wednesday.
Zach, your thoughts? You got two games back to back. Which game obviously everyone's looking forward to Kevin Durant, but which game worries you the most between these two?
Well, neither of the games worries me. Let me throw that out there, and I'll explain why. As far as the most important game, the tougher game, I'm gonna have to agree with Craig on it being the Clippers, and I think Donnie said the same thing. And here's why. First off, the Clippers, they're the team right now that people are thinking are going to claim the number 3 spot in the West, where the Thunder were last year, behind the Warriors and the Spurs. And so I think the Clippers and the Thunder are going to battle back and forth for that spot. I really do, based on just what we've seen from the Thunder so far. A lot of people think the Thunder are going to finish a little bit lower in the West, but I've got maybe a little bit too much confidence in them, I guess you could say. But as far as the Clippers game goes, Thunder are third in the league in rebounding right now. The only problem with that stat is that does not indicate great post defense. And that's really where the Clippers strive. They've got decent shooters. Their three-point shooting is a little bit down this year, at least in the couple games they played from what I had seen. And but their posts are strong. Their duo with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan is just fantastic. And we got to play defense against those guys. That's what it's going to come down to. Russ has to have everybody else surround him. He's got to have the supporting cast step up. I don't believe that Chris Paul has the defensive ability like he has in years past. I think he's aging. I think Russell Westbrook is just continuing to improve. And CP3 is not going to be able to guard him one-on-one all night. So I think Westbrook's going to demand a lot of double teams, which means he's got to find the guy open, whoever that is. Very well could be Andre Robertson a lot because people just are not afraid of his shot right now. He's been getting some good looks at three, and they've just not been pretty. He's been fantastic at the rim, which is great, but he's got to get his shot down, get it under control, and be able to contribute. So got to find the open man. As far as the Warriors go, I think that game means a lot more to the media, first off, than anybody, but then secondly, the fans, and then finally it means something to the players. I think Westbrook is going to walk out with a chip on his shoulder maybe a little bit just because of some of the things that Durant has said. I don't know if you saw this earlier. I just saw it posted right as we were starting the podcast, but apparently Durant just did an interview with USA Today and basically talked about his love for the 405, his love for Oklahoma City, and he made a comment, something along the lines of if an Oklahoma City fan saw him, then they would look at me and know that we're friends. And I'm just thinking, KD, you're about 4 months too late, pal. He can try to talk on nice now, but he's really said some things that I think have not put him in the best light. And because of that, I think the media is trying to stir this series up, and I have no doubt it's gonna be something else for sure, just because of that history there and the Westbrook Durant relationship. But I think the Warriors are playing with a chip on their shoulder right now for some reason. They were the media darlings all season last year until they gave up the 3-1 lead to the Cavs. At that point, LeBron took his media crown back, and ESPN has been all over the Cavs ever since. And I guess they feel slighted. I don't know if you heard Draymond Green's comment the other day. I've got it right in front of me. He said, teams are trying to punk us. It's fine. We're not going to get punked. Like, I was cracking up when I read it because as far as punks go in the NBA, Draymond Green is numero uno. He's one of the dirtiest players in the league, and now all of a sudden he's upset because he feels like teams are playing more physical against him. He's going to have to get over that. That's what. Whenever you're near the top, you got a target on your back. People are coming after you. You just got to get used to it. LeBron James has played like that for years now, and he's made some comments here and there, but nothing like this. So it's time for Draymond to grow up. I don't think that game's going to be anything more than an early regular season match. As far as how we fare through those first two games, if we go 0-2, I'm not going to worry about it. It's early in the season. I definitely think the Thunder can be in a position to win both, but I'm not necessarily expecting it. I'm hoping for some close games, hoping for some good basketball.
Let's talk about the physicality of the Wednesday night game for just a second, because you mentioned Draymond Green. And outside of Draymond Green, I don't look at the Warriors as being a physical team, but certainly the Clippers are, and Oklahoma City is as well. What's the potential of that game just kind of having some of those moments between Blake Griffin and Steven Adams, or DeAndre Jordan and Steven, or Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, just having those? I mean, Chris Paul said the other night after they beat Portland, Chris Paul says, you know what, we don't care anymore. We don't care what perception is. We don't care what people say, what people think. We are who we are. We're a physical team, and this is the way we're going to play basketball. Kind of a shout out to the league, like, guys, get ready for this. What are your thoughts there, having new guys on this roster, having some of your international guys who are just going to get immersed into this suddenly? Is there any thought there about the physicality? Can Oklahoma City match up physical man-to-man like what the Clippers are going to bring Wednesday night, Zach?
To put it simply, no. I mean, overall, the physicality, I think the Clippers are going to win that war without a doubt. That's not really a fight that the Thunder want to necessarily start. There's history there between the teams, and a lot of that history is gone now that Serge Ibaka is gone. I know he and Blake, they've had their run-ins on a number of different occasions. It kind of seems like both teams are kind of growing up a little bit, maturity-wise. Chris Paul's been in this league long enough, so he knows exactly what he's talking about when he's not worried about perception, which is actually impressive to hear from him as the leader of their team, really. But I do think it'll be a physical ball game. I think Adams and Griffin are going to play their typical game of trying to be a provoker. They both kind of have that same mentality, and I could see that coming out. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, getting the win is what's most important, especially I mean, it's early in the season. It's not like this is a do or die by any means, but the Clippers definitely don't want to lose this game. It's in L.A. It's early in the season. They're trying to prove that this is their season. This is their season to do something. Meanwhile, the Thunder, young, lots of new guys. Durant's gone. Ibaka's gone. Trying to prove that they're still in the league to stay as a force to be reckoned with. So it could get physical. At the same time, it could end up being just a disappointment on as far as our expectations go, is just being a regular old basketball game. I don't really know. I don't expect that to be the case, but I also don't expect it to be one of the great physical battles of recent years between the Clippers and the Thunder.
All right, Clippers 3-0, the Warriors 2-1, Oklahoma City 3-0, coming home, surviving this road stretch. Then you get a little bit of a break in the schedule against two upstart teams. Minnesota currently, at the time we're recording this, the Timberwolves are 0-2, and then you jump into an Eastern Conference opponent, the Miami Heat, right now 1-2. Now, look, there's such thing as home field, home court advantage. But Oklahoma City has something going for them that really I don't think any team in the NBA can boast of when it comes to home court advantage. Most teams, when they travel to play the Thunder in Oklahoma City, they end up staying at the Skirvin Hotel, where apparently Ron Artest was molested by a ghost Saturday night before the Lakers played Oklahoma City on Sunday. I'm going to read you some of the comments. You guys, I'm sure you've seen this story, but this is from the Orange County Register. Lou Williams says, "I'm not going to play with that. I'd rather pay for peace of mind." What he's talking about is several of the Lakers players paid money out of their own pocket to stay at another hotel other than the Skirvin. Lou Williams says, "If they say it's haunted, that's enough for me. I'm not going to roll the dice." And then Larry Nance Jr. said, "I prefer to stay away from the supposed supernatural. I just don't want to have any issues." And then you got Meta World Peace, who stayed at the Skirvin and said, "The ghosts are all over me. I just accepted it. They touched me all over the place, and I'm taking one of the ghosts to court for touching me in the wrong places." Now, obviously, Meta World Peace is joking about taking ghosts to court, but he did stick to his guns and said that he had some sort of supernatural experience. I mean, this is beyond ridiculous for me, but it's also highly entertaining. I mean, what? It's not like the Lakers are the first team to who was it last year that said that the ghost scratched his face or bit his face? You guys remember that?
Kyrie Irving made a claim about bed bugs, I believe it was.
Okay. Well, there was something about the Skirvin and whatever. I just, it's kind of fun, but there's really nothing to that. But, I mean, I think, isn't it in time Oklahoma City embraced that we have whatever that ghost's name is, the woman, I can't, Effie. Isn't it time that we embrace Effie as part of the Thunder tradition?
I love it, honestly. If it's a mental game that we can play against opponents, let's do it. The fact that Lou Williams needed to move to another hotel, I don't know if you saw his stat line for Sunday, but it was not impressive at all. Last time we played him back in January, I believe it was, he dropped 44 points against us. Now, I know it's a new season, new team. He's not necessarily the same kind of player he was last season, I don't know. But he's right in the rotation with where he was last year, and he was just ineffective. So maybe he was still worried about ghosts. I don't know. But I'll take whatever we can get to get a mental edge on opponents. We've already got arguably the best home arena in the league. So if we can add another element to that, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just not only do you have to deal with Loud City, you have to deal with Effie the Ghost. I mean, that has to become a part of the legacy of Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, I think it's time, again, that you guys were giving out free ideas. Someone needs to print out some FE T-shirts and get them out there, that kind of stuff going on. Now, as far as the teams themselves coming to town, Minnesota 0-2 on the season, losses to the Kings, losses to the Grizzlies, and then they're getting ready to play Memphis again tonight, Tuesday night as we're recording this. What is it about this team, Zach? Because I know you had them as kind of one of your three teams to watch. What is it about this team that catches your eye?
They kind of remind me in a way of a young Thunder team. We had a bunch of young guys that were just freak athletes, fun to watch, didn't have a good history, didn't have a lot of wins underneath our belt, and then out of nowhere, playoffs, then contending for an NBA Finals trophy and all this kind of stuff. I'm not saying they're going to be contending for a Finals here in the next few years by any means, but if I were a fan of another team, it just might be the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are so fun to watch. They just got some bad news I saw yesterday about Ricky Rubio. I can't remember what his injury is off the top of my head, but he's going to be out for just a little bit, so that hurts them in a big way. But they're young. They're exciting. Zach LaVine is just a freak in nature when it comes to dunking the ball. Andrew Wiggins, he's kind of in the same category as that. Chris Dunn, Anthony Towns, they're going to be a team to watch just because they're so young. They're getting that play time together now. So if they can manage to keep that crew together, they're definitely going to be a team to keep an eye on because there's no telling what they're capable of.
Donnie, the Miami Heat are another team that's young, up and coming, starting over, so to speak, scoring a lot of points, just not scoring as many as their opponents. They're 1-2 on the season, also playing Tuesday night against Sacramento, at home against the Kings. Talking about the Heat and your thoughts on them coming to Oklahoma City on Monday night.
And Dion Waiters gets to come back to Oklahoma City and get to watch Waiters Island. The Heat, man, the whole Chris Bosh situation is just, it's sad the way it's happened. It stinks for him. You put Bosh on that roster, and they're incredible. You obviously, but as they are now, Hassan Whiteside, I mean, he's every bit of the craziest shot blocker. I mean, the Heat are okay. I don't really know how to really kind of peg them as far as going forward. I know they try to get free agents every single summer, and they've kind of mortgaged the future, except minus Justice Winslow. I don't know. They're kind of in a stagnant holding pattern. I guess Pat Riley might think he can work his magic and bring another big guy down next summer. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to Dion Waiters, man. I like that guy.
Dion Waiters averaging 10 points a game. I'm a big fan of Justice Winslow and Hassan Whiteside. All right, Craig, prediction time. The Thunder will play 4 games between now and the next time we have the opportunity to make a recording. So tell me what's up. What's the record going to be this time next week?
I'm going to say 3-1 after over the next 4 games. I really think they're going to lose to the Clippers on Wednesday night, but I think they'll be ready the next night against the Warriors. I think obviously emotions are going to be involved in that game, and I think this Thunder team is better at handling emotions than Golden State. I think obviously Russell Westbrook is mentally tougher than Kevin Durant. I think for sure Steven Adams is mentally tough as anybody on their roster. And, yeah, I don't think Kevin Durant handles that well, or even, I'm blanking on his name.
Steph Curry?
Curry Thompson.
Draymond Green, sorry.
Draymond Green.
I definitely don't think Draymond Green handles situations like that very well.
He's likely to kick you for forgetting his name.
He is, yeah. I think they take care of the Timberwolves in Miami after that, but the Clippers will be a tough one.
All right, Donnie. Craig says 3-1. What do you say over the next 4?
I think 2-2 is realistic, and I hate to be the pessimist, but 1-3 wouldn't shock me, and here's why. The Thunder are a better basketball team than both the Timberwolves and the Heat. However, there's going to be a game when they just can't throw it in the ocean, and shooting-wise is just awful. And coming off the Clippers and Warriors coming back, I could see a little bit of a letdown, and I could see a horrible shooting performance. I think 2-2 obviously makes sense. I do not, at this point, I can't predict them to beat the Clippers or the Warriors, but obviously the Timberwolves and the Heat are games they both should win. I'll say 2-2, but 1-3 wouldn't shock me.
Hey, Zach, before you make your prediction, Donnie brings up a good point, because I picked the Thunder to lose to the Clippers based off of the fact that the next night they're playing the Warriors, and you got the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook saga, taking place on the court there. It's a little bit of a distraction, but let's say they win that game like Craig is predicting. What is the chance of a letdown game when they come back home to play against Minnesota?
You saying beat the Warriors?
Yeah, let's say they beat the Warriors, or let's say they lose in a tie. I don't think either one of these 2 games in California are going to be blowouts. I really don't. So let's say they lose by 7 points to the Clippers, and then they lose by a bucket at the end of regulation. Steph Curry hits a 3-point shot like he did in Oklahoma City last February. And that's how they lose. Or let's say it's the opposite. Russell Westbrook hits a shot and beats the Warriors. What's the mindset coming home to play Minnesota after that?
Well, my hope is that Westbrook is just going to maintain what he's been saying. It's just another game. You got to keep looking forward to the next game, be prepared, stay ready. Unfortunately, that's not how sports work. Emotions ride high, and players can say all they want. I definitely think there are going to be some emotions involved here. Kevin Durant's been coming out with some recent comments. Like I stated earlier, there's another article that former Oklahoman writer Anthony Slater, now he's out in California. He did an interview with KD about the whole work friends comment, and Katie's trying to clarify now and say, no, they're like brothers. That was something that was misunderstood. So I don't really know what's going on between those two. I'm assuming they still haven't talked. Kevin Durant seems to think that they're going to work it out. I don't think Westbrook really cares at this point. He's in this league for one purpose, and that's to play basketball and to win. So I would like to think that he comes in on Saturday ready to go against the Timberwolves. One of my bold predictions for the Thunder that Craig and I made preseason was that the Thunder wouldn't lose more than, I think it was 7 home games total. And so I'm going to stick to my guns here and say that they're about to – Minnesota's going to be game 1 of a 5-game homestand. And out of those 5, I think that Oklahoma City might lose 1, but I could see them sweeping all 5. So I'm going to stay confident and say that they come ready to go and ready to play.
I agree. I don't see them losing the 2 home games after this. But this California road trip, I'm the guy on the outside looking in, and I don't even like picking it because I'm a Clippers fan, and you guys know that about me. But we do need to come up with something. I mean, it's obviously too late for this, but we need to come up with some sort of hazing or bet or something between the Clippers and the Thunder for when these games approach, that I get to do something, or you guys have to do a hail Blake Griffin or whatever after the game, and I'll have to do something ridiculous. I do know that Craig and I have a wager pending on the season in total, that whoever has the best overall record at the end of the season between these two teams, if it's the Clippers, then Craig's buying me lunch, and vice versa. I had to buy him lunch last year because the Thunder obviously ended with a better regular season record than the Clippers did. Donnie, we're running short on time. So give us one crazy trade scenario. We have already seen Jermi Grant get moved over today, but that's not really a crazy scenario. But, Donnie, give me one crazy trade scenario that we can look at potentially for this team.
Yeah, I think the fact that they didn't get a rookie deal extension done for Andre Robertson does say something. Then when they trade a guy the next day who has a similar skill set, might be a little taller, I love Andre Robertson. Love him. I think he's a great fit, but I don't know if he's a $12 to $14 million fit on a team that's a 5th, 6th seed or so in the West. I just don't think that really fits. I would not be shocked at all to see Andre Robertson moved. Here's the guy I think makes sense. Zach will disagree, but it's Otto Porter of the Washington Wizards, and he would be a very good scoring wing to add to this team. And so that's my crazy trade prediction.
All right, Zach, you got any comments on that?
I don't know much about Otto Porter. Donnie and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but just looking at his stats and he's not a guy that I've heard his name called a lot. And as far as young guys who show potential, usually you at least hear something about a guy. And, I mean, he's been in the league. I think this is his 4th season. He hadn't really played much, if at all, really, his first couple years. Finally started getting some play time last year. And, I mean, he's put up some decent stats, but just not necessarily anything that jumps out at me as a guy that we have to go after. Donnie and I also talked about trying to go after a guy like Rudy Gay, which supposedly there might be some whispers of a trade still in the works there. The Thunder might try to grab him. If we could grab a guy closer to him, I'd be a lot happier with that. Not really sure who I'd be willing to give up for. Once again, it's so early in the season, and there are a lot of guys that I kind of expected to make leaps and bounds this season, and I think Andre Robertson was one of them. So I would hate to see us trade him before we really give him a chance to show if he's improved. And I don't know. We'll just kind of have to see how that plays out a little bit. I definitely think Presti's working on something. He's the kind of guy that he's kind of like a sleight-of-hand magician. You get focused on what's going on right now, but he's definitely doing stuff behind the scenes. So there's no telling what he's working on right now.
All right, Heartland Sports game previews, post-game recaps. You guys throwing out there your top 10 teams to look at, your next 3 out, and so forth. And then also you can follow us on Twitter at it's backwards on Twitter. It's Heartland-Sports for the website, Sports Heartland on Twitter. And then Craig, you guys have the Thunder Guys Twitter handle. What is that?
All right, it's just the Thunder Guys is all it is.
The Thunder guys. All right, so check it out. We'll have pregame stuff up tomorrow for the Thunder and the Clippers, and then make sure you check in every day for post-game content, as well as your opportunity to share your own insights and so forth in the comments section. Guys, thanks for your time. You're doing an outstanding job, by the way, killing it through the first week of the season with your recaps and your previews. Thanks so much for all you do. Thank you for everyone for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback, comment section. Let us know where you agree or disagree with us. That's going to wrap it up for us. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you soon.
When I wake up, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. And when I go out, well, I know I'm gonna be